everybody. We are here for Game 4, as my hair has somehow gotten even more ridiculous than it was looking earlier on today. No idea what on earth is happening there. It's the good old quarantine haircut that I cannot wait to get rid of.
Yeah, I do think I need a haircut of my own, but not sure how it's going on over there. Over here, quarantine will be extended a fair bit longer. But anyway, we are heading into a new series. We are more than halfway through the day, but we're going to be seeing two faces that haven't been on stream for quite a while now.
That is correct. tom60229 up against DawN. And, if we want to speak a little bit not only about the players, but also the countries that they represent, the very clear story that we have so far in APAC is that South Korea and Japan are absolutely dominating at the moment, with the vast majority of South Koreans being in Division A and all the Japanese players being in Division A. DawN here down in Division B, though, is one of the few players who has found himself unable to convert his final decent performance in Week 3 into a spot in Division A. And tom60229, for representing Chinese Taipei, is very indicative of how they're doing overall, which is to say, not great, all in Division B.
Yeah, it is a little bit lackluster, which honestly, if you told me at the beginning of the season to arrange the players in what division I think they would end up, I almost certainly would have put Tom in Division A. So that's a bit of an upset, but I do think he still has the chops to make it, say, to playoffs through top finishes in Division B. And that, of course, will start with a performance this week. But as far as lineups are concerned, he's bringing pretty much the most standard set of decks.
He is indeed, but DawN, however, has got something here significantly more spicy. And what I was wondering about before the break turns out to have been true. He is not banning the Warrior, and I think that is in due no small part to the fact that he has Priest in his lineup. He is thinking, with all the plethora of removal and healing and all that goodness in his Priest, he will be able to outlast the damage that Warrior can throw down. So I'd be very curious to see if we can get that matchup later on. But first of all, Gia, we have our first Highlander mage of the day.
It's true, and you talked about the reasoning for leaving up Warrior, and whereas with Kin and Blitzstone, we weren't quite sure what they were trying to go for in that vein. With DawN, it's a little bit more clear, because even just having Mage, for example, seems to be one of those decks that can stand up to Warrior. And DawN, having left out Demon Hunter, which is considered a bad matchup against Warrior, I think has a pretty clear strategy in mind.
And speaking of a pretty clear strategy to have on mind, the amazing Reno kept in the mulligan sounds like a pretty concrete strategy that DawN is going for in this game. I've got to be honest, I am surprised to see that. Obviously, it's a very powerful card in the matchup when turn 10 rolls around. But most of the time, I'm looking at instead getting down an earlier scam with Deep Freeze or Power of Creation with the Dragoncaster.
Yeah, I think it is those two schools of thought for Mage again, whether you want to play it as a control deck and just remove things on curve, or whether you want to play it as a scam deck and maybe pull the win out of nowhere by developing minions far earlier than their mana cost would usually imply. But maybe DawN here is thinking that if you just, say, Blizzard that first round of Glowflies, that hardly ever gets there, because at some point they're going to have the Mount Sellers.
Yeah.
And by then, what AoE can actually deal with them cleanly? Usually it's above 10 health, so just the Reno can't get. Sorry, the Relicologist can't get there. Instead, he needs the amazing version. So I'm not saying I agree with it. I also have some questions, but I can see the mindset.
Definitely can see the mindset. But while we were discussing the mulligan strategies, we've already hit turn 4/6 for these players, depending on how much mana they have. And along the way, Ysera was discarded. That is a huge deal there for Tom to have lost that. And the Mount Seller goes as well.
Oh my gosh.
All of a sudden, his deck is looking extremely light now. I was talking about trying to scam the Druid by getting an early Deep Freeze or Power of Creation down. Now that both of those high-value minions are gone, I am looking at just running the Druid out of threats.
I can definitely see that as the game plan for DawN now. And the timing of the Doomsayer he played might look a little bit curious because it's not going into the 5-mana slot turn for Glowfly, but it's allowing DawN to develop a minion onto the board uncontested if he wants to. But with the draw of Arcane Intellect, there's room now to pivot.
Yeah, it hurts to not go for the Rusty Raider there, but it just doesn't do enough. A 1-8 on board, I think when you're heading into a Mount Seller turn, does not cut the mustard. You've got to save it for something more valuable. And therefore, drawing to try and find, as I was saying, Dragoncaster to get down an early spell, or maybe Zephyrus, Blizzard, anything to fight back against an expected Mount Seller turn coming up.
I'm curious as to whether there's any reason to play the ice barrier right now or later on. I guess it makes almost no difference because there's not much from Mage that's comboing off of playing a spell on the same thing. But here is the first push from Tom, and taking a quick look at DawN's list, I don't think... Oh, he actually is playing... Yeah, he is playing Flame Ward, so Tom can't be sure which one that is.
And he doesn't have any other buffs in hand, so he may just be all in on the strategy of hoping that it is not Flame Ward, which, in my opinion, is very valid. Things are looking bad for Tom. He needs something miraculous to happen to take this, and therefore saying, I'm going all in now, and you don't have Flame Ward, feels like a good strategy.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind it. And for DawN here, he doesn't know that Tom doesn't have buffs, so it's not like he's divulging any information by committing more onto the board. Because you might think, if, from DawN's perspective, I have a Flame Ward, why would I even play a Kartut here? It's because Tom might have the second Power of the Wild.
And I think if Kartut comes down, it may just be game. There will be 38 effective health for DawN, but Tom can go Savage Roar, Bog Beam, Crystal Power, Moonfire to completely eat through it. And with the Power of the Wild as well, that's just game.
He doesn't even have to worry about Flame Ward. It could have been a very interesting decision point, and you and I were both saying he probably still would have landed on attacking face the way that he discarded so many of his late game refills. But now it's not even a question. And oh my gosh, in the blink of an eye, Tom just gets there with the Druid.
He does indeed. A disgusting amount of damage coming through, and even with 38 health being available for DawN, it's still not quite enough to get the job done. And Tom, despite discarding both the exotic Mount Seller and Ysera, does end up taking the win. And I'm trying not to be too results-oriented here, Gia. There was a lot of stuff that DawN could have found along the way to help with this, but Amazing Reno was sat in the hand doing nothing the entire game.
For this one game, I mean, because the deck is Highlander, I can see even more of the extremes in both sides of the argument. Because you're saying, well, if your deck is Highlander, you need to mulligan as much as possible to get those cards that help you survive the mid game. But on the flip side, if you're thinking that you actually do need Amazing Reno on top of those mid game board clears most of the time, then I can also understand keeping it. Because in many panouts against Druid, just dealing with that first wave of Glowflies is not enough. You often default to having to have the Reno at some point, especially if they have Soul of the Forest. So I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
Okay, fair enough. One thing I will say, though, is that I really like Tom's decision to, even in the face of a potential Flame Ward, still just go all in with the Glowfly Swarm. Sorry for splitting the infinitive there. Because it meant that even if there was the Flame Ward there, he was probably just losing the game in a slightly longer run because he had no glimpse of the Mount Seller coming down later on, and instead just had to develop onto the board and pray that it was the Ice Barrier. Didn't matter either way, obviously, with the top deck of Power of the Wild, but I think that was the single turn that won Tom the game no matter what.
Indeed. And now it will be the matchup that we think is the reason for DawN maybe leaving up Warrior, which he thinks Mage has got a good chance against it. Let's see if he can put the theory into practice. Already has Corsair Cash in the opener.
Where's away the Dragon Caster there? Yeah. DawN is not an acolyte of the scam school in Mage. It's clear to see. He is instead much more reactive with this deck than I am. And to be fair, the face of this deck has changed drastically now that Luna's Pocket Galaxy is not available to be cheated out with the Dragon Caster anymore. But you, of course, have not only the power of creation, but also the Deep Freeze now that can be used later on. Or even just a Rolling Fireball. Being able to go coin Dragon Caster into Rolling Fireball on 5 really doesn't sound too bad to me.
Doesn't sound too bad to me either. I'm taking a look again at DawN's list to see if he's running a bit more early game that he would prefer to roll into. I'm seeing Imprisoned Observer, which is not something you always run in Highlander Mage. Maybe just that one additional minion is enough to convince DawN that he would rather look for early game plays. But Tom, with the risky skipper on 1, come on! I made a video saying that you shouldn't play this on 1. Please don't discount me, Tom. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but if Tom does it on one, then I probably have to re-edit my video.
Well, this is the first thing that you learn about Warrior. When everyone is asking you, or you ask someone, how can I improve with the deck? What am I doing wrong? Are you playing Skipper on one? That is what you're always told never to do, except if, you know, in very extreme circumstances, if you have Bomb Wrangler or something that can curve perfectly into it. And it is massively punished for Tom. He just doesn't have a risky Skipper anymore.
And I don't know what the possible upside was. Maybe if he had exactly Inner Rage to go with the Rampage.
Right.
If he only had the Rampage.
He had no answer to a coin 3-2, which could have been either Astromancer or Zephyrus, or even Doomsayer. Just Doomsayer alone completely answered the risky Skipper there.
Okay, maybe we're approaching Tom's mindset the wrong way. What if he says that in this matchup, you're not actually saving Skipper or those big payoff turns? What if he wants to be the major aggressor and just play everything on curve?
You say that, Gia. Do you agree with that, though? Because I'm pretty sure I don't agree with
don't.
that. I think
I
Skipper
really
is
don't.
good in every matchup.
The way as I'm saying it, I'm shaking my head, but I'm, you know, racking my brains for a way to justify that. In any case, Tom has started the threats. He has the Bloodsworn to copy this on the following turn, and DawN is a mana short of being able to play Rolling Fireball. So even though the Skipper has gone, Tom's got a new wave of threats.
Does indeed. The Secret, again, presenting an awkward choice here for Tom, because what he obviously wants to do is just throw down the Bloodsworn Mercenary and start chucking everything to the face. But it does make it a little bit more awkward in terms of how he wants to copy it.
He's going to test first, gets the news that it is not Flame Ward, so he can fully copy this Tolvir here. Whoa, that is premium.
That's fantastic. Wow.
Yep.
Oh, that's Tom's plan.
What?
He'll just get it back later on.
He can curve straight into the Captain's Greenskin if he wants. The positioning is actually okay here for DawN because he has exactly 4 damage on board to clean up the other Tolvir. But it's not like Tom could have chosen where the copy goes because it always goes to the right of the original.
Well, he could have copied first and then played a
right.
Sky Raider in the middle, right? That was a pretty severe misplay from Tom's part. He would have been left with another Tolvir that could have attacked face.
And you're right.
Obviously, this way around leaves him mana available if he wants to play a Pirate instead. But there is no Pirate I can possibly dream of that's better than the Tolvir there, than copying the Tolvir.
And as we say this, Tom has just taken 0 seconds to evaluate his turn on the turn itself.
This is just what always happens with Tom. He looks like he's just so, you know, relaxed about it, not really thinking about it. And last time we went in on him for not liking his plays, it turns out we were the ones being doofuses.
Right.
But I've got to be honest, I am
a little bit surprised,
critical, to say the least, of his play.
But still, this is insane.
Yeah.
He's not running out of juice.
Risky Skipper. Soon. This is why it's good.
Play the Armor Smith if he wants to not overdraw, but that's going to blow up a lot of his board.
Yeah, he could just trade in the 2 1/1s first to make room for the bombs, which is obviously the important thing.
Sure.
And then the main part is here, he just needs to get as much damage face as possible so that he can set up for Grom in a Rage Lethal.
Indeed.
Yeah, I guess if you don't trade the second 1/1, you get 1 extra armor. A slight optimization. But nicely done.
Tons options now. Very awkward. Tiamat. You really don't want to... Okay, that's an option.
That is the option, Gia, and DawN knows it. Look at that face. That is a man who is about to box.
I think I need not say anything else till we see it happen.
Let's go.
Oh, that's a start!
Whoa.
What the heck?
That's an insane start. Sure, brilliant.
Okay. Okay.
There's no totems box. Stop getting confused. That was a pretty good box.
I've definitely seen crazier. Usually, they tend to clear the board, draw you cards, and develop for you. For DawN, this did 2 out of the 3. And in most cases, it might be enough. But actually, the 2 heal from Holy Nova puts him one
Kept him
above.
alive. 1 health against Grom in a rage. 1.
This is crazy. But to be completely honest, probably doesn't matter all that much. Because DawN has so many ways that he can still do this over 2 turns.
I mean, Tom. It's a powerful setup indeed, and DawN needs to find something miraculous to pull back from this one. No more box in the deck for Tortollan Pilgrim to find. And Carter alone looks like it's not going to get the job done.
I mean, he's got to look for some type of scam from Power of Creation, maybe double cartons.
Okay, yeah. That seems valid. I'm not seeing much else, to be perfectly honest, because obviously he has to both remove and put a taunt in the way, or put so much taunt that nothing else could possibly get through.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either. And this could be really, really bad for DawN, because by leaving up Warrior, it tends to make me think that he's trying to target it instead. And if it gets such a quick and easy win like this, it might cause DawN's whole strategy to crumble apart.
Yeah, target is maybe a bit strong. He's hoping, I would imagine, to just like get a win against it at some point would be a big part of his plan. But I'm pretty sure that even with the worst bomb outcome there, that is still just game going to Tom. Easy peasy, 2-0 up to tom60229 here in what was a very weirdly played Warrior game. I do want to say again, if you're new to Warrior, Risky Skipper, despite being a 1-drop, is very, very rarely played on turn 1. And while Tom was pretty, there's no real argument about it. He was punished very hard by going for that on 1, and also misordering in the face of the rolling fireball. Despite all of that, that was one of the most dominant Warrior games I've seen in a long time.
And it was really largely off of the back of Battle Rage, which, to be fair, I think before he played it, he had already drawn his second Risky Skipper in deck and didn't necessarily need the one he generated off of Skyreader. But you can't rely on that outcome to happen so consistently. A lot of the times, Skipper gets stuck in the middle of your deck. That's why you're playing Ankar, because it's so crucial to draw it. And again, I am still shocked that he played it willy-nilly on turn 1. Panned out for him there, but I am not 100% in agreement with the overall line.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back, because I believe when he played it, he had the Rampage, the Corsair Cache, and I think maybe one of the Livewire Lances in hand, which of course means he's fairly likely to find Ankar off of the Corsair Cache, and therefore draw through to the rest of his Risky Skippers. And at the very least, DawN was kind of forced into using the coin, which is a fairly big deal, in order to get the Astromancer Solarian down a turn earlier. Trying to get into Tom's mindset here, I still agree with you that it is not the play I would have made, but it worked out fantastically for him no matter what, in a overall, I think, very solidly played Warrior game.
For sure, and that means that DawN is down 0-2, has to get wins against Rogue, which, to be fair, that is the deck that has been letting down most people throughout the weekend. But as far as the decks that prey on Rogue, I'm thinking more in the realm of Zoo, in the realm of Face Hunter. Not too sure about how Galakron Priest and Highlander Mage can line up against it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a very interesting matchup, because I agree with you, and I think Sothel and Raven were talking about this a lot, where they saw the matchup in Europe yesterday, where Priest should lose to Rogue. That's just the way it's been for the entirety of Hearthstone. Valera beats Anduin. It's just they have too much tempo, too much burst damage, and Priest can't seem to get there. But in this matchup, it feels like maybe the Priest has enough powerful things in the mid to late game to fight back. But before that, we're of course going to go with the Mage up against the Rogue here. Another matchup which I think before the rotation away with Luna's Pocket Galaxy was fairly favored for the Mage. Now I think it's a little bit closer.
Yeah, I can definitely see that Rogue can get enough late game value to go toe to toe with Mage's powerhouse cards. And there's always the possibility of an early Edwin locking out Mage, because nowadays I think Mage's struggle is the single target removal, especially if they're only running the rolling fireball and not the natural fireball, which seems to be the more favored list nowadays.
Zephyrus is extremely tempting on this turn to just go straight up for the wild growth and try and ramp up towards Alexstrasza and Kalecgos, especially when coupled with the escaped Mana Saber for a huge amount of mana gain.
Indeed.
Like it a lot.
Here, would have loved to have drawn something like Backstab, but that is a close second.
You can't be too upset about that. It's a 2 on deck. You're going to be seeing a few sealed games. 2 to be precise.
The draw of the Rusty Raider is actually pretty significant for the following turn.
This is really powerful. Ooh.
So Bamboozle is the card that you do play in your deck, which, rule of thumb, tends to be the pick. But I wonder if Waxmancy gives Tom some leeway to discover something that DawN won't necessarily expect.
I was looking at Headcrack, I have to be honest,
really?
as
Okay.
Tom was there. The conclusion I was actually about to say was that I think it's a bait, because you're going to have so much mana to spend, and that's kind of not how you win the matchup, is just by getting that little bit of damage over the top. But we'll have to see. Can Tom weave it in enough times for it to be a worthwhile pick? I am unconvinced, but curious to say the least.
Okay, let it go down in the records that this is the time I did not go for the Snork option, and Yarok did. Well, at least you considered it. I didn't even consider
Heavily
it.
considered it. But now for DawN, look at what's available. Despite it only being technically turn 6 for him next turn,
Oh my gosh.
he will be able to go coin Alexstrasza to the face, or even just coin Dragon Queen Alexstrasza to start exploding onto the board. This is insane.
Definitely looking at the Queen here. I'm not sure what Tom can do, even across 2 turns, to develop enough that goes toe-to-toe with 3 dragons, unless it's really terrible dragons off of the Dragon Queen. And if enough of them stick, we're looking at potential lethal from DawN by just playing the natural Alexstrasza.
Oh, now this is the mage that I know and love from DawN. This is Scam Mage to the max. This is a turn 6 Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, completely illegal. And completely devastatingly powerful.
But as far as scams go from Mage, DawN didn't even do anything like the Dragon Caster's early boxes. He just played a Zephyrus and had the hand.
There is, however, now argument to hold back, because Ray of Frost
will not
is
hear it.
very, very
I
powerful.
will not
Just go
hear
for
it. I will not
Okay.
hear it.
Silence
more
thy
Leroy?
tongue, knave.
No more Leroy? That means Tom is not coming up with 11 burst most of the time. And so DawN just presents the counter lethal.
All right, you convinced me. The very big top deck, though, in the Faceless Corruptor.
Right. Can't be played all this turn with the Blackjack and the Secret. Definitely gonna have to come down.
Yeah, this does actually better than kill the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, because it is uncastable for the rest of the game. And still, it takes up a hand space as well.
Correct. And while Tom manages to clean up the board pretty nicely here, this Crazed Netherwing actually looking okay. Oh, never mind. The Rush Lackey is, sorry, the Restless Mummy coming in real clutch for Tom here.
Oh, and the head crack for the perfect mana utilization as well. Never doubt Tom. Never doubt him, man. He never misplays. Oh! All right, that is a nice card to find on the other side, though.
Uh-huh. I'm looking at this Ancient Mysteries to try and pull the Ice Barrier for DawN, because the health total is starting to get a little bit scary. But I also think that at 13, maybe it's not yet requiring him to heal up. He could go for something like Solarian. But DawN says, let me play more stuff to play around your ambush. Seems
exactly. This is really, really smart play around ambush. Also, it just develops the board. You know, there is the downside of damaging his own health total, but there's no Leroy anymore. You perfectly highlighted it. It's just so unlikely that DawN dies here.
And he gets
Even
the
with the
ice
head
barrier
crack.
again. I think 3 times he's played Ancient Mysteries, he's got an ice barrier every single time. And this is the first time he prefers it over Flame Ward, I think. Going to respond with his Tog, but I think DawN has every possibility to go for Alexstrasza to the face. Feel pretty protected at 18 health.
That is scary, Gia. There is 7 attack on the other side of the board.
Okay. He could still trade one of the minions and play Alexstrasza.
Yeah, I think Alexstrasza has to be this play this turn. It's just so powerful.
What to do?
He knows there's a head crack as well. Of all things.
True. So minimum 7 damage on the other side. Oh, sorry, minimum 9 damage, but with the extra 8 healthy gains, you should be able to survive, I think. And like you said, just trading the 5/5 into Togwaggle, I think is fine as well.
It's good from DawN. This is exactly what we were debating. The Reno goes face every single time. It's just a question of whether he wants to send the Netherwing in. It opens up outs for him for lethal next turn, even if this board gets cleared. For example, Kalagos discovering a Fireball.
Great point.
It's really difficult to evaluate whether he thinks he can keep this board advantage through a Wondrous Wand. Overall, I still like the trade.
Yeah, it's not only the potential for immediate lethal, it's also just the fact that over time, if they continue even on board, card for card, the head crack will get there for Tom, unless DawN protects his life total very carefully.
Viscerate head crack is so much damage. If you're Tom here, you probably don't even proc the ice barrier, right? He just goes for head crack over like 3 turns. And then he wants to clear off some stuff.
Many options.
Maybe right. He's obviously still wondering if it's Flame Ward here. But even if it is, he could just continue not attacking face. Reno is the downside of that, of course.
But is he beating Reno compared to an ice barrier here? Okay, to be fair, he can take back the board this turn. The Tiamat Divine Shield Rush with either Seal Fate or there's just a lot of ways.
You could go Rush Wind Fury for a full board clear on this turn.
Yeah, that's very clean.
Instead, he takes the 3rd option. Oh, giving it Rush afterwards. Okay. This is very
Yeah, very smart.
Oh, this is a great line. Oh, I didn't even consider this, but Rush Lackey makes this perfect for him.
An even rarer Tiamat with 3 battle cries. And if you're done here, I'm seeing this Kalagos and Frost Nova.
Yeah.
I like the look of it.
There's a few outs he can get for lethal, especially when you factor in the extra spell damage that Astromancer Solarian would offer him with the Kalagos next turn. Obviously, not outs for lethal on this turn, on the following turn.
He could be thinking if he can get away with something like Nova Doom and then set up his Dormant minion, but I think that's asking a little bit too little of the room. Another Nova, that's insane. With the Seal Fate, does this go up to full invokes? Yes, it does. Oh my gosh.
So unbelievably close here. DawN can obviously freeze for another turn, but as soon as Kronx is found or something of that caliber, Tom can just start pushing for lethal, and with double Eviscerate, as well as that infamous already head crack, Tom's homing in.
He absolutely is. Not quite this turn. Probably wants to commit at most, I would say, 1 other minion in the secret. I think anything else is way too much of a punish into Reno.
I will act as your scale.
As it stands, he's already showing 10 in hand and the weapon equipped, so that's a lethal setup for next turn.
Oof, overconfident Orc plus a freeze?
Yeah.
technically alive, I suppose, as it currently stands.
It is very tenuous, but having to use a freeze means that Tom will get even more card draw.
Yeah.
No matter which way it goes, DawN has to play the spell at the very least. It's just a question of whether he thinks he needs to play the Orc as well. It seems like the obvious way to pair with it, because DawN is trying to find a way to get lethal of his own.
To be honest, at this point, I'm wondering if the play is to go Orc, Frost Nova, and then double Ray of Frost your own Astromancer, because drawing the Prime off the top is your only out.
will crush your delusions.
It's not, right? There's Reno.
I guess. But it gives you another out. And I'm not sure that, you know, adding another out to your deck is probably worth it.
Okay. There's also for Tolan. Okay.
Sure.
His outs are to stay alive, but I'm not seeing the outs to actually win the game outside of trying to set up lethal this turn, but it is not available for DawN, but Tom can just get there with the 2 eviscerates and the weapon to face. Yeah, he can just copy one of these minions, rush through the taunts.
Yep.
Very well spotted.
It's all there. A nice little lethal spot there that does mean that Tom takes a 3-0 sweep here over DawN. We should never doubt this man. He is the former world champion, and time again, he just gives us a glimpse of his true power in terms of Hearthstone, as he has done here today. I think there were some things we disagreed with, but in the end, he took some very smart plays, as the eccentric genius that tom60229 is, always seems to do.
Indeed. As far back as keeping Ultimate Infestation without ramp, playing Risky Skipper on turn 1. No matter what year it is, Tom is doing something we don't expect, and it works. So props to him.
Exactly. Good plays, bad plays. You never know what to expect from Tom, do you, when it comes to his slightly rogue approach to Hearthstone. But I believe, if I heard correctly, with that out of the way, we are going to jump to a quick break because we only have one more match here today. So don't go anywhere. Samuel Sao versus Tyler will be the final match today. It's going to be the first time we're seeing Samuel Sao in GM, so make sure you stick around. We'll be back up.